I welcome you to the second DSB HR Conclave 2014. In this session, we will have discussion on perspectives and challenges in HR and organizations with a global context. Delhi School of Business is honored with the gracious presence of Professor Sunil Maheshwari as the moderator for the session. May I request sir to come on the dais? Professor Maheshwari is a professor of HRM and Strategic Management at IIM Ahmedabad. An alumni of IIT Delhi and IIM Ahmedabad, sir has worked with BHEL and Indian Railways before getting into academics in 1998. He has also worked as an advisor to the Ministry of HRD. His research, consulting, and teaching interests are strategic human resource management, international human resource management, and business turnaround. One of his greatest contributions include his book titled Turnaround Excellence, based on his research study of 6 turnaround cases. Sir has written of more than 30 cases. Sir has widely published his research articles in not only national journals, but also international journals of high repute. He is currently serving on the board of UCO Bank, and he is the chairman of Board of Governors of Academy of HRD. Sir, today we feel extremely privileged to have you with us.
Our first panelist for the session is Mr. Abhay Kapoor from Escorts Limited. Sir, I would request you to please come on the dais. Mr. Abhay Kapoor is currently working as Associate Vice President in Corporate HR and ER functions at Escorts Limited. Sir is heading Corporate ER for all businesses or escort groups. He holds Master's degree in Personal Management and Industrial Relations, degree in Law, an advanced course in Human Resource Management and Employee Relations from Human Resource and Industrial Development Association, Japan. Sir has innumerable achievements. He is a 6 Sigma Green Belt, a certified change agent, to name a few. With a wide experience of 22 years in HR and ER, Sir has worked in leadership positions in large Indian and multinational companies like Ranbaxy, LG, Andritz, and many more. Sir, it's a moment of pride for us to have you here. You're welcome.
Our second panelist for the session is Mr. Anmol Singh Garewal. So may I request you to come on the dais? Mr. Anmol Garewal is a human resource professional with close to 15 years of experience of working in large organizations. He holds an MBA degree from the University Business School, Punjab University. He is an MA Economics and BA Economics Honours from Punjab University itself. For the past 5 years, Sir has been working as Divisional Employee Relationship Manager in the Hotels Division, ITC Limited. Prior to this, he has worked as an HR manager at Nestle, ITC Moria, Dabur India Limited, to name a few. It is indeed a matter of pride to have you with us, sir.
Next, I would request our third panelist for the session, Mr. Arghya Sen, to join the panel, please. Mr. Arghya Sen is the HR leader for commercial and supply chain for GE India, based out of Gurgaon. I'd like to share a little about a journey. Sir joined General Electrics in 1998 in the motors business in India. After short stints in multiple functions, he took over the HR responsibility for an P&L for the GE Healthcare and was a part of the team which grew the fledgling business 3 times to $1 billion in a span of 8 years in China. In 2011, he returned to GE India to be a part of the $8 billion locomotive deal bid team. Sir, we feel really privileged to have you here. You're welcome. Now, I would request our Principal Director, Mr. Professor Ratan Sharma, sir, to please extend a warm welcome to our guests.
Now, I would like to take the opportunity to ask Professor Maheshwari to initiate the session. Thank you.
Thank you. First, let me express my heartfelt thanks to Professor Pandey, Professor Sharma, Professor Bhattacharya, all the students for inviting me and my distinguished colleagues here on the panel for this session, and for a lovely theme, strategic issues in global context. I mean, nothing can be more lovely than that, I can tell you. It's a very, very critical and many issues. In fact, when I look at in the global context, I don't think that it needs only ITC to talk about it. ITC, yes, it's a global organization which needs to, where we need to talk about it. But even the domestic firms are facing global context. So two very important dimensions of this. One is the organizations which are already global and present in multiple locations all over the globe. So one is that kind of, and it's a very unique and big challenge. And how do we address as a HR manager? The second, my domestic organization, even if they are not global, but they face global organizations, and it has huge strategic challenge. And that's where how do we really face and come to terms with that? Just to give you an example, actually, which comes to our mind. A couple of years back, I think it was only 4 or 5 years back, we had all our departmental stores flushed with Tide, 40 rupees a kg kind of thing. And you go enter there, suddenly you find packs and packs of Tide, and PSG suddenly slashed the price of Tide. And the implication was that Unilever India share prices were going down because they had no option but to slash their prices of surf. Now, when one multinational subsidiary challenges another subsidiary, how do you address this issue? Because P&G, given the market share for them, is a small bleeding. But when it hurts Unilever India, I think the implication is much, much larger. And that's where, from a competitive point of view, if this is what companies can do, they can hit you in China, they can hit you in India, they can hit you in Japan, you don't know where, and they will hit you where you are most vulnerable. And vulnerability comes from market share. The market in which you have the largest market share, they're going to hit you. And how do you address that? I think that's one kind of challenge. And HR, I think, has big role to play. The second issue, and I'm sure we are going to deal with that in some form or the other in this session. If you look at generally in life, actually, the bigger you become, more vulnerable you become. If you're going in a Mercedes, don't take any panga with a cycle rider. Otherwise, if he slaps you back, you are suddenly nowhere, actually. And so is the large multinational companies. Remember the case of, I frequently call it Pesticola issue or Kidabari issue. In a small store somewhere in Bombay, you find some insect in a Cadbury chocolate. Now the news is flashed all over the world. I mean, if the media people in UK or in US are not flashing, Nestle makes it sure that it's flashed on TV. And one episode somewhere in some corner of the country, of the world, suddenly you find it becomes a global news. And that's where a large organization like a global firm, when you are big all over the world, if you're present, and one slippage even in one little corner of the world somewhere can have huge implications for you. I think as a HR manager, we have a huge challenge in hand. So while on one side we talk about the entrepreneurship, the freedom, the autonomy to your subsidiary, but at the same time you got to make sure that none of this really happens where one small episode becomes a global news and suddenly starts hitting you hard. And for that we have three very distinguished panel members. They have done wonderful, and I think we talk about ITC, we talk about GE, we talk about Escort, and let's listen to their views on all the global context, the strategic challenges, and how do we address in HR. What we'll do with the permission of all of you, we'll have about 15 minutes or so for presentation, and I request, this is what I think the previous session did a wonderful job of keeping the question till the end. So I again follow the same process. What we can do after each presentation, please write down your question on a piece of paper, pass it on to us, and once all the 3 presentations are over, we'll take up those questions. All right? So that's the process we'll follow. So with that, let's start, and first I request Anmol to come and make a presentation. Thank you so much, Anmol.
Good afternoon. This doesn't sound like a business school good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Still doesn't sound like a business school. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
That's great, because it's a post-lunch session. I have to ensure that everyone is, energized and ready. And, recently I was reading a magazine and they said that the biggest sales manager in any company is the HR person, right? So somewhere that statement really stuck to me, and I'll start with a sales call. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the ITC Grand Bharat, which has just opened yesterday. A huge investment by ITC in Manesar. And it is part of a beautiful golf course which was designed by Jack Nicklaus. So it is a classic golf resort. This is, please behold, ITC Grand Bharat. And for reservations, you can contact 1800-102-233. Right. So now we get to the business at hand. Aap program banaiye, I'll definitely help you. Okay, now coming to the business at hand, I'll start with a topic which is as vast as the blue ocean strategy. I guess it is HR practices and challenges in a global context. To be honest, I'm a very small person to make such a large presentation. I have just 15 years of experience and I'm still on a learning curve. But anyways, I'll try my best. What I've done is I am keeping the audience in very safe hands. So I've done a lot of research gone through the right content to share with you. And second, my own experience of the last 15 years. So it's a mixture of the two. There's a lot of people share a lot of gyan. What is HR strategy? What is strategic HRM? I know a lot of books have been written and read, but one thought which has really stuck to me is that HR is essentially a creature of and serves the business strategy, right? And the bigger thought is that never think of HR in isolation. Never think that you are only HR, because the moment you start thinking that you are just in HR, the organization will put you there itself, that you are just HR. So you have to come out of your shell, you have to put your foot in the door, or you have to just be with the business, and you just have to be with the flow. I've been told by Professor Bhattacharya to rush through a little bit because I have a lot of content. I'll start firstly with a case study which we learnt at IIM Ahmedabad about 2-3 years ago. And I feel this is one of the best HR case studies which has really stuck to me. It is on the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, which is a benchmark for human resource management across the world. Any business model, if we visualize at a very broad level, is actually there's a customer, and then the customer interacts with an employee, and these interactions of customer and employee generate economic surplus, generate business outcomes, and in turn the investor and the society benefit. Right? So if I remember going as a kid to any company, any Maruti dealership, they used to be customer is king, everywhere, 80s, 90s, and up till now also customer is king, which is the credo all over. One company challenged this, and it is the Ritz-Carlton. They changed the game. They said out of these 4 key constituents in this whole supply chain, from customer to employee to investor to society, the only controllable variable with the organization is employee. You have no control on your customer. Customer can shift loyalty. You do not have control on your investors because they can question you anytime. Society, no one can control. So the only controllable variable is the employee. So what the Ritz-Carlton did was, they changed this paradigm. They brought the employee to the forefront. They said, you take care of the employee. Employee will manage the customer. And from there, the investor and the society will benefit. So this was the first change. And what does an employee do? What is the job description of an employee at Ritz-Carlton? Simply, one is to attract customers, and second is to generate customer spends. Right? He has to provide that superlative service to generate customer spends. So, in fact, I'm fortunate to be in industry and in the hotel industry, and we are also getting there as the Indian players. Another thing very relevant to the Indian context of HR, it says that once you have got above compliance and administration, HR is all about decisions, right? So the typical HR decisions which you are going to make in your life are going to be in the current context. This is the structure of my presentation. Basically, it's managing talent, business and ethics, sustainability, diversity, employee health, various issues. So I'll be touching upon briefly in 1 or 2 slides on each of these areas. And these are the themes which I feel are the emergent themes, and they've been always there. It is not that I'm going to talk anything new, but I'm going to share with you some of the latest perspectives on this. Okay, just to cut the long story short, Hay Group estimates that in 2014, the global attrition rate from the 2012 levels is going to increase by 13%. And if you really want to hold on to your talent, they said that the typical 4 or 5 factors which are very important is confidence in leadership, opportunity for career development, autonomy, supportive work environment, appropriate compensation. Easily said, but when you ask the HR professionals, to even drive 1 point out of this is a Herculean task. So I'm here to motivate the youngsters that hope you are able to take care of all these 5 points when you take over the big seats in HR. Right? Confidence in leadership, I feel for us it's a national issue. It has been a national issue, but now it is somewhere, seems to be on the road of rectification. So same way, opportunity for career development. I think I'll be sharing some of these aspects as I go on. Managing talent, it's a little home-baked recipe which I'm going to share with you. In my 15 years of experience, I've seen that there's 3 types of talent which an organization is able to get, and the talent which you attract is your own vision of HR. It is your own culture of the organization, right? I feel there's a lot of companies which hire the sprinters, who just work for 2-3 years, do their best, but after that they are so bored that they decide to move on. So this is one part. If this fits in well with your organization culture and ethos and your business model, please go ahead. Must do this. The sprinters are really important for an organization. They are like booster rockets. They put the organization in the orbit. Then the second phase is the middle distance runners. They stay with you for 5 to 10 years, right? What they do is they work on one cycle of change with an organization. Within those 5 or 10 years, they're able to drive a certain degree of change, and thereafter they say, okay, I've had 5 to 10 years of this organization, there's nothing much to offer, I move on. And then the last is the long distance marathon runners. They look very slow, they look extremely disheveled sometimes, and they don't run at a very strong pace. But in the end, they are the ones who get the keys to run the company. So my suggestion to all the people who are sitting over here is that prepare for the marathon rather than the sprints and rather than the middle distance running, right? So this is about talent, and the only credo which I have to present before you is that our management attrition is at 12% at ITC, and our non-management attrition is at 24%. So these are amazing figures on a 7,000 base of manpower at the ITC hotels. The next critical piece, I think the most critical, this is where HR's role is going to be really huge, humongous, is business and ethics, right? And the base for this itself is the organization culture. What is organization culture? It is the way really things work in an organization. I would divide the business and ethics part into 2 areas. One is organizational level part of ethics as to how well organization is able to instill their values in the people. And the second part to this is the individual level. At an organization level, when people have a huge ethical dilemma, either they stay on and compromise with it or they decide to move on. However, what research is indicating is that any ethical lapses, even one single ethical lapse or even one single wrong decision by the top management related to any ethical issue really snowballs badly on the organization, because it can impact a lot of factors. HR has a huge role to play in this, because you are there in hiring, you are there in training, and you are there in evaluating employees. So please be champions of business and ethics in your organization. This is the first message. Second, at an individual level, I won't delve into too much in, but there are 2 sociological factors which impact us. right? One is we have a flexible value system. Till yesterday someone was a pure vegetarian and a teetotaler. The moment to impress the boss, then suddenly a person changes his whole value system. Next 2 years down the line you meet the person says, yeah, I like to have wine and I like to drink, and it's a great MNC organization, and I'm really enjoying it, right? Now the question is, I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is that whatever principles you have, especially for HR people, better to stick to them rather than just to, playing a perfect courtier. Second is, in India, which is a cultural thing, the moral dilemma is bigger than the ethical dilemma. A very small example on this, you see a policeman taking a bribe on a road, right? That is his ethical dilemma. He's compromising that, but when you ask him, कि भैया आप ये पैसे क्यों ले रहे हैं? He'll say, कि साहब मेरे को बेटी की शादी करनी है, बच्चों की एजुकेशन है. He'll go into karma, dharma, religion, everything. So the moral dilemma will overtake the ethical dilemma, right? So a request to all audience is that, the sooner we negotiate this journey in our life, the better off we'll be later on, right? How to define an ethical culture and environment that makes it easy to do the right thing and makes it difficult to do the wrong thing, right? So as HR people, we can really influence this in a big way. Sustainability, I'm really fortunate to talk about sustainability because I belong to an organization which has been a pioneer. We are the greenest luxury hotel chain in the world and the largest luxury hotel chain in the world. The notes in the green are for your reference. I won't delve into it. So what I'm trying to say is that where does sustainability come in? People today want to connect with a cause. Does this organization stand for something larger in life? Does this organization stand for something for Mother Earth or something which is much larger than the organization, the CEO and the individual, right? So people look, and sustainability is a huge, huge area to market yourself as a product, as a brand, and as an employer. And you can always visit the ITC Hotels website and you can get enough gyan on sustainability, right? Diversity, emergent theme, I'm sure my friends from GE and they are already up there, in fact they've created diversity in corporates across the world. But at ITC, how we are trying to create diversity and how we are trying to manage it and what are the issues is, today we have about 35 expatriate resources, and believe in me, an Italian will come with an Italian culture, a Thai will come with a Thai culture, so we have to try to amalgamate that in our system. Managing generation X and Y with people who are 55, 56 at the same workplace during the same shift. So this is again part of diversity. Women at the workplace, hotel industry provides a lot of growth opportunities for women, and this is another area we are extremely conscious about. But the bigger issue which we feel is the safety of women at workplace. In fact, ITC is the only document which has only company which has 15-page document on how to drop a women employee at home after her evening shift. So we have a 15-page KOP, right from a pepper spray to be carried with a security guard, with everything, So these are some of the issues. Then hiring differently abled people. We feel that if you want to be inclusive and you want to create diversity at the workplace, the differently abled are no less competent than any one of us. And then let lateral hires succeed. Although this doesn't happen at ITC. ITC has a very strong culture, right? And I feel that any company, if it really wants to win the talent war, has to let the lateral hires succeed, right? Employee health, I'll just quickly touch upon it. What we do at ITC is, irrespective of the grade, designation, or performance appraisal, everyone gets helped in a medical exigency, right? Whether it's a vice president or whether it's a housekeeping associate, we pull all stops on, we just go the whole hog on this. In helping a person in a medical exigency, sometimes it can even cost 1.5 crores, right? But if it has to be done, it has to be done, because this is where the true employee engagement comes in, right? Then quickly on the emerging employee relations in India, we are in midst of an extremely aspirational India. The organized sector workforce is actually shrinking post-liberalization, which is a disturbing fact, right? And the informal employment, the contracted employment is rising. So what all this is going to create is that earlier you used to face an onslaught within the organization. But today, if your industrial relations goes bad, right, believe in me, you have a full menu ready in front of you. So there will be union, there will be external unions, there will be social activists, there will be international unions, there will be political parties, there will be labor department. So be ready for the whole recipe to deal with. Right, I handled the strike in Nestle and in 2009, and it was a huge learning in these modern days, right? Employee engagement, I'm sorry, it's not about cutting cakes and giving birthday cards and giving those hugs and giving that pep talk and all. It is beyond that. The responsibility of employee engagement lies only with the employees. So your strategic leaders have to make engagement as a part of your strategy, and your tactical leaders have to show it every day to the employee that he's very caring and you're linking employee engagement to your business strategy. So this is very critical. I'll quickly skip this. I'll come to compensation management, because I'm in an organization where we are opening new hotels. We have hotels which opened 15, 20 years ago, and then there are hotels which have happened almost 35, 40 years ago. So what I'm trying to say is that you have to link compensation strategy to the life cycle of business in today's time. The same recipe or the same compensation fitment or same approach cannot work anywhere. If I was to ask the HR pundits, they'll feel very bad about it. That नहीं ये तो क्या बात कर रहा है कि हमारी compensation structure मतलब कि मौर्य में अलग होगी और कहीं और अलग होगी. What is this joker talking about? But really, you have to customize it as per the audience, as per the average age of the business, as per the average age of the employees. Research shows after the age of 37, your benefits basket has to increase, whether you like it or not, because then the health issues come, children's education comes, etc. So I can't delve too much into details because of paucity of time, but this is one area I wanted to share. Then second is, we have in ITC something called as the ABC compensation model. What we wanted to do is, earlier approach was that you distribute the same money across everyone. No, now it doesn't happen like that. You have to define the people into 1, 2, 3 category. We define them, and we define all the jobs into A, B and C category, right? So basis that, then we target and peg their compensation in the market. For example, A category job performed by a first category employee gets perhaps the 100th percentile of the market, right? But a B category job performed by a category employee, right, will get perhaps a 66th percentile in the market. So this is how, what we are trying to do is that there's the same kitty. You have 100 rupees to distribute, but you have to distribute them very judiciously in line with your business strategy. So it cannot be like the old times that, everyone gets the same thing, right? Organization development, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a critic on this, because I feel organizations talk about it, they go to seminars, there's a lot of gyan, but nothing happens on OD. First, get 2 things right. Indian organizations are known for it, and now global organizations are also known for it. No, very few organizations, barring GE. I feel 2 biggest issues are, one, Indian organizations, I am also from an Indian organization, ITC. Succession planning is extremely ill-defined, right? And second is, onboarding and induction sometimes really goes for a 6, right? That the new joinee comes, and within the first week, companies can frustrate him to look for the next job, right? However, at ITC, we have customized the onboarding process as per the individual. So, it's a really customized thing, and we do it for 3 weeks. We make the person travel all over India, go and stay in our hotels, please be our guest, try Bukhara, try Dampukh, try Peshawari, right? But understand what the business is and come back with some relationships in the larger ITC frame of things. Succession planning is important for maintaining productivity during change, and no one listens to this aspect. I'm really sorry about this, but it doesn't happen. Lastly, in HR, do not wear too many hats, understand the organizational context, align with the business strategy, and do a few things, but do them really well. And these are some of the 9 skills which are required. I just picked it up from some article I was recently reading, so I've just put it, and this is my last slide, again a sales call. Please experience the ITC Grand Chola in Chennai whenever you go to Chennai. Reservation number 100-102-233. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll take up the questions after the third presentation, right? So keep your questions ready, and we'll take them up at the end of the presentation. Sir, can I request you to please come and share your thought?
Good afternoon, Dr. Pandey and all the co-panelists. I think that's the maximum. Okay. After lunch and then having a nice presentation from a hotel company, let's come to the basics. I'm from a tractor company. So I help farmers. Our company help farmers in food production. So we are basically an Indian company. We have our large operations in Faridabad and also have a plant in Uttarakhand and kind of a research center in Bangalore. But we do have a plant in Poland. And we do have our market in US and Europe and a lot of African and Asian countries. But not that much. But our plant in Poland is going to expand very soon to expand our business in European and African markets. We all know that we are sitting on a bench of globalization. And globalization is a world which is very local now. We all talk about it. In any organization, if they really want to expand, especially in my industry, if I want to expand and I focus only on India, may not be able to harness my full potential. I have to expand, I have to look for global opportunities, I have to look for the best of the best technologies, I have to look for the global markets. Then only survival is possible, because it's a age of competition, and without competition, if we are not competitive in the market, survival will become a question mark. So with all that, I'm thankful to Delhi School of Business. They have chosen a very right thing to discuss, that what are the HR challenges in this era of globalization. So we'll just touch upon some of the things which are happening there. Some of the challenges which comes when we talk about the global markets, that how are we going to coordinate in those markets, what are the products requirements, how the productions or manufacturing is different in different markets, how the marketing is different, how the service is different, customer expectations are different, and these are a huge challenge. And HR is responsible to align or reorganize the entire organization or HR structures according to the need of the market where he want to operate, where we want to sell or where we want to manufacture or where we want to service. So it requires a lot of efforts in extending our HR policies and systems in that kind of global market. It requires a lot of efforts in providing that kind of customizations according to those countries, those markets. So recruiting and deployment is a big challenge, number one challenge. So getting the right skills to where they are needed, and regardless of their geographical location, how can they move around. The knowledge level, skill level, understanding level is different in each part of the world. Now how you align that understanding level and how you find the people to deploy there to match your organizational requirement, that is also a huge HR challenge. And identifying the talents. So sometime like language is one of the issue where you have to find out that how will you come out with the language barriers, skill level gaps. So global mindset, the people with the global mindset, or the people, those who can be deployed or redeployed in any part of the world, are very limited, we all know. But how to keep them engaged and motivated and get the best out of them for the benefit of the organization, that is one of the bigger challenge. And when you are expanding or when you are entering a new market, again getting the fresh talent is another challenge. So whether we have to hire a fresh talent or we have to redeploy the talent it becomes a very huge HR challenge for the organization. Then comes the engaging and retaining. So these are some operational things. But if we look at a broader aspect, when we talk about the expert management, the different personalities, their family issues, their personal responsibilities versus organizational responsibilities, their responsibilities at home country versus their responsibilities at the country where they are posted. So these all are issues which ultimately comes to HR, where you have to handle it and engage with the person, make out the arrangements, their salary structures, their benefit structures. That is another issue. So how the globalization can influence this kind of practices, how to ensure that diversity is also maintained. In some of the organizations, diversity is the key concept, where but if you go to some of the countries, you find that diversity becomes a big issue. You will find a particular gender or particular class of people, or a particular gender only working there, or a particular age group only, you will find that a working class. Or in terms of experience, you may find that only people, those who have a very large, very high years of experience are available for the working, wherein you are looking for the young talent. On some countries, it is vice versa. So there is a huge aspects when you look into these things. Then training also becomes a very culture, aligning with the work culture of the core organization. When you are operating in a global environment, how to maintain a uniform work culture across the organization, which is aligned to your business objectives. Because percolating that work culture to the mind of the people is again a huge task. So basically it's 4 aspects which we have to think from a inter-country differences, their economic system, then political and legal system. Political system also makes a huge difference. Cultural factors, their ethics, their values, their ecosystem, and labor relations. From HR point of view, when we talk about particularly in manufacturing or service sector, labor relations also becomes a huge issue. The way we manage labor in India, it is not the same way the people manage in Japan, or the people manage in Europe, or people manage in US. Their laws and their practices are far, far different. Like in what we talked about policies, now how to come out of the issue of HR policies. You want to have your own global policies, but then you have to have acceptability in the people where they are working, in the country where they are working. So the best way is to have a policy which is possible to implement, but customize it according to each country, align it with their local laws, local expectations, local value system, and expect the high performance delivery from that country. Then other issues, particularly related to pay and incentives, your cost of living, your pay structures, the way taxation structure is defined is different in each and every country. Selection processes, every country has certain laws related to that. Then training and development practices, and purpose of performance appraisal. Now here we may say that 12% or 15% or 20% annual revision is there, but in some of the countries where they are having a developed economy, not this kind of percentage they have seen. So it's a very different scene in managing the compensation and benefits for the global level. Then change is a continuous process, and how to manage change, the way we manage change in India and the way we have to manage change in other countries. While you are already struggling a lot in managing your lot of HR issues in that country, and then over and above, when it comes that, okay, we have to change from our business portfolio or the way we are working, and we have to change our management practices. So that becomes another burden on already struggling issues. I talked about ethics and values. So what is the kind of values the top management is observing in that country, the country head of that particular country and the top management people, and how they are going to get the delivery from the people in down the line. Geographic is one, polycentric is second, and then their own ethnic. So basically, if we divide, you have to divide challenges in three parts. One is expat challenge, then people from the home country, those who are going into the others, and then third country nationals. Because at times you don't get neither from the home country nor from the your own country, and you have to go hire people from the third country, or you have to move people from one country to other country to percolate your organization culture and business ethics all across the globe. Because I'm talking all this from a perspective when I worked with Ranbaxy before Escorts Limited, and which was a very hugely global organization where we had operations in 57 countries. So kind of challenges we had, but ultimately we have to keep on moving from one country to other country, the key people. Then only we can drive the business. So recruitment at the local country home also becomes an issue. So how to help these kind of expatriate assignment successful, that it should be, people should success in the assignment. We must have proper discussions with the people, the careful screening of the people, those who are willing to go there. Their assignment orientation should be checked, the job which they are supposed to do there, and the expertise which they have should have a kind of a match, so that it gives them an interest level to go that in that country and take that challenge. And training on the culture and language, and definitely a attractive benefit package which should motivate him to deliver his best. Then to bridge the gap in the skills, the preparations which are required prior to departure, like orientation and training on the culture, on the language, on history of the organization in that country, local customs, living conditions. Then during the assignment, what kind of skill gaps, continuous development, continuous training, his career planning, his visits to the home country, and then particularly in case of, like for example US or maybe in any country, the kind of adjustment in the lifestyle or workplace and employees. Family adjustment, lifestyle issues, work adjustment, business regions. So these all challenges which employee expect a kind of hand-holding, and where HR need to provide support. Labor relations, I just touched about. Characteristics, like I talked like every country has a different kind of laws, different kind of labor relations, and the way they treat. Like if you go to Germany, you will find that one of the example which was shared by one of my marketing head in my company, that he went to visit a German company for some purpose, and after spending the whole day when he was coming, so the visiting card were given, those who made the visit were of the union leaders. He said that I am the union president, I am the general secretary. So this is the kind of importance which is given in that country, but in our country it is different. But if you go to Japan, you will find that union and managers are working together on the shop. All the decisions they are taking jointly. So every country has a different kind of working environment and a kind of a different labor relation practices. And union negotiations, in some of the countries, negotiations are done at the association level. Some countries it is an one-to-one level. Some countries you will have to have single union, multiple union. So this is another HR challenge from the employee relation perspective, which HR need to handle. Performance management systems do differ, but these need to be aligned. Pay and salary and compensation need to be adjusted, readjusted. And developing a global compensation philosophy which should work towards kind of a balancing factor. Providing support in developmental challenges. So having a global HR governance is key, where we, these are the aspects should be all, and it is a thing like which need to be visited and revisited again and again and need to be re-emphasized in the organization to meet the challenges. So I'll not take much of the time and we'll leave the rest of the thing for the question and answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You have covered a wide range of issues and we'll discuss much more about it during question and answer. Thank you so much. It was lovely. Sir, let's have your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, for the students, I kind of made 2 pages, not long, 2 pages. I wanted to give you a bit of a snapshot that each of you would be kind of coming out in the next few months to look at employment in the market, employment with companies, and hopefully you choose companies like us. So what we would kind of put today, what I would like to talk about is a bit of a context, a bit of a background about multinational companies, and what I would represent is talking about transnational organizations which actually came to India versus Indian organizations which went outside. So I'll give you a little bit of a context, a little bit of a recap of how this kind of happened, and you need to know portions of the history because they kind of define what were expected of those people at that point of time, and then briefly cover a little bit of the challenges as we see, which ails transnational organizations, and we'll kind of take it from there. So a bit of a recap, you know, that what are these global companies in challenge? So as I said, I'll be talking essentially about companies which are headquartered out of India and are working in India. So they were these historical organizations, right? I mean, they existed. When I came into when I was studying, there was always a Philips, there was always a Siemens, there was always a GSK. So these were, though they were multinational companies, though they were global companies, they were very Indian companies. They had completely localized, their market was India, they were governed by Indian laws, they raised equity in India, it was very localized. They were not affected during the 1979 when George Fernandez took out, you know, Coke, IBM. I mean, they were as Indian as it could get. But then post-liberalization, something happened. You know, there was one consulting company which came out with a $300 million Indian middle class, which was as big as the population of Australia, probably as big as the population of the US, and had affordability as much as the US. So everybody who was anybody came into our country at that point of time, primarily to make like quick money, misread the market, but at least they made an inroad. They were the first people who actually made the transnational or the MNC or sort of those jobs available more in the markets, compensation, etc. They kind of changed at the time. Well, that didn't really take off. What came next was these people realized, well, you know, India is not that very expensive. You get very skilled manpower at a very low cost. Cost of setting up establishments, plants, factories are relatively less. So the first bunch of low-cost manufacturing started happening in India. At the same time, it happened in China and elsewhere in the world. Then was a phase where people realized, well, you know, there's an extremely, extremely talented lot in this country. So there was a huge talent export, and it was not just doctors and engineers who were going. There were IT guys who were going. I mean, I'm talking about infrastructure IT. There were materials people who were going. There were HR people who were going. There were finance people who were going. They were kind of the new generational of, the foot soldier to the middle ranking officer to the senior person who was kind of the spreading the transnational company outside of their home geographies and going into new markets. The technology part came, around the same time when they decided that instead of taking all these people out of India, it was probably better to keep these people in India and have global services come out of that. That was another phase which kind of led to a lot of IT, a lot of technology sort of centers kind of come up in India at that point of time. What it did for us is it raised the level of skill very much available in the country. And at the second time, it was a huge employment generator. It was a lot of lifestyle balances which we kind of happened here. Then we saw a bit of a slump. Then 2008-9, we saw a bit of a slump, but you just couldn't ignore India at that point of time. You had to be in India to do something. It was too big, too important to not be there. So if you were a company who were not present in India, you at least had a token office opened up because someday something would happen. And today, I think there is a very positive sentiment about India back again, and there are again a lot of companies, a lot of people kind of coming down making a point here. So there are two indicators which you will see when you kind of see if the interest back in India. I live in Gurgaon. I see more white people in the Gurgaon pubs than I saw before, and you'll see more foreigners in the airports, which will tell you that this sentiment is kind of coming back in a much larger way. Talking about challenges about transnational, and I'll talk about my experience, I'll talk about experience about my friends who worked in these sort of companies, it's the first thing to understand that one size does not fit all. If there's something which works in the US, might not work in India, what works in India will not work in China, and what works in China will not work in Brazil. So understanding that one size does not fit all, the whole standardization of the need for standardization is something which people have to be careful about. It's about how much of the trust you have in the geography. Are you willing to relinquish control from the HQ to have local empowerment, or you're going to hold control at the HQ or where the company is centered defines a lot in terms of how you're going to get your outputs delivery and what sort of a culture you would set. I would say, adding to that, the companies which really need to kind of turn and deliver pieces basically think local. You have to localize. You've got to understand that anywhere in the world, creating local jobs are very important. That if somebody has to want to sell in India, you better have an opportunity of creating jobs in India. You want to go to Bangladesh, you have to be able to add value to Bangladesh. You need to create jobs in Bangladesh and in Sri Lanka, wherever you kind of want to go there. People who want to work in this sort of organizations, I think the next 3 bullets are for you, and it's a challenge which we face continuously. Is there are 2 things which I kind of see with companies like mine. I see companies similar to mine. One is a predictable execution and one is replicable execution. Predictable execution is when somebody comes and says that I want something to happen and we say ho jayega, doesn't mean that person is going to believe you. Because a person has been scarred maybe once, has been scarred twice. Say-do ratio will be a question. They set up a process with milestones and they review those milestones. And that's predictable execution, because if you're not hitting the milestone, that means you're not going to hit the final outcome. So that process around that. Replicable, outcome is something even more difficult. So when you look at the whole service sector as it came up, so a process in India should be equal to a process in Philippines, should be equal to a process in Brazil. So the predictability and the replicability of that process has to be very important. So most of you, when you come off your campus and you go into your first roles, you will see those things. What do you need to be careful about? You need to be careful that you should not become such a slave to a process that you do not learn content. Because content and domain is what is going to get to your next rung of jobs, leaderships. What we find challenges, I think, not just in a global context, but I would say you will find this challenge in India that the generation which came into employment in the 2000s, they're at a point where they would want to seek HR leadership roles. Now they are 15 years, 14 years in careers, they would be knocking extremely bright people. A lot of them are not getting tapped for the number 1 role because they haven't worked at the initial part of their careers into the hard jobs. They haven't done plants. They haven't done, hardcore hands-on commercial roles. They don't know labor laws. They know very good execution, extremely solid in execution, extremely maybe good at strategy, but not having covered those bases hurt them. So ensure that you don't miss that part as you kind of transition in your college. Make sure you be focused on your basic concepts, learn, do the hard work on your labor laws, do the hard work on your industrial relations pieces, understand OB and industrial psychology, very, very important as you kind of step out. I would say the other pieces would be around rewards and recognition. It's a very, very aspirational group. Again, as I said, what works somewhere might not work here. It's a very generational thing, that what do millennials want, what do the Gen Y want, what do the Gen X want. They kind of ask for different things. So having understanding of what is the R&R is a very, very, very huge challenge in cultures like that. Last I would say is aspiration management. Because majority of people who kind of work in these corporations at a certain point of time forget that they belong to a certain country and start belonging to an organization. So you start thinking about your next role. It's going to be somewhere global. You're going to go to some exotic country or some exotic island or to another country do a role. Those happen, but they're not for all. So being very realistic and kind of managing your aspirations, that point, managing your employees' aspiration, I think is a very critical challenge at this time. And lastly, I would like to add a point. I've been having an HR career 16 years. I have kind of had a phenomenal time. I've always had fun in my job, and I hope I continue having fun in the job. I wanted to kind of put one thought in your minds, because in the morning sessions, I kind of sensed there were a couple of existential questions about human resources, as to what do we do, and what are we there for. So I would like to kind of put some thoughts in your head saying that, you develop yourself as a business leader who has HR as an expertise. And the essential question of HR being the topic is something used to be like 20 years or 15 years ago. I don't think that exists any longer. But be good in domain. If you're good in your domain, if you're able to kind of add the depth and your subject matter expertise into what is the business outcome, you'll always be relevant at the table. Be it your understanding of labor, be it your understanding of key talent, be it your understanding of succession planning, be it your understanding of what drives certain behaviors in the bottom line, but that would call for, challenging status quo, that would call for asking a few hard questions, and that would need you to be involved and focused all the time. So look forward to your Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was so insightful, and I thought I'll put some kind of conceptual frame, because three distinguished panelists, I think, have raised phenomenal and very, very fundamental issues of managing HR in global context. First, I think what our friend Anmol did talk about, the issue of culture, ethics and values, and I think that's a very, very critical issue. And why I say that, you see, in a global context, especially for a large multinational organization, one very fundamental issue remains that how do you make sure that your people in subsidiaries keep on behaving the way they need to behave? And they listen to you, actually. There are instances when headquarter issues instructions and subsidiary managers refuse to listen. And there are a whole lot of conflicts faced because of that. So one issue is that how do you make sure that your subsidiary managers keep listening and keep behaving? And I think that's where culture plays a big integrating role. And creating a unifying values, unifying kind of culture is one of the, and which is invisible. In fact, you don't pass on any instruction that you have to do this, there's nothing doing. Pure culture and ethics is a huge integrator and a huge control system which goes right from the mind. No instructions need to be given, and I think that cannot be underestimated under any point in time. It's an extremely important issue. I think and that's where the comment which you made is so insightful. HR is all about shaping the behavior. And through your HR practices, shape the behavior so that your subsidiary managers, your parent company managers, and all your business heads, they keep behaving as a unifying team in a strategic direction. Very insightful and wonderful. We had Mr. Abhay Kapoor, he talked about large number of issues. But I think, sir, your comments on expat management is really very, very insightful. In fact, there are companies who believe if you want your subsidiaries to behave, that's the only way, send your own people. So if I'm going to set up a company, or if I am expanding in Poland, one way of controlling Poland is that send people, the most trusted people of Nandas, send them in Poland, and be rest assured, that the company keep behaving. But there are a whole lot of issues, because we know after reaching to those countries, they may become more local than the locals. And if they do not behave the way you wanted them to behave, and that's the risk, and that's where selection of expat, their compensation management, which is very different. In fact, you got to pay much more to them. And mind, because if this is the reason to send expat, they're going to occupy the senior position. They are not the lower level people. They may be head of R&D, they may be head of finance, they may be head of operations. And if these are the people, the kind of compensation issues, their selection issues, their flexibility issues. And sir, at the same time, the very important point that was raised, the culture, the diversity, the language. When you go and be in Thailand, or for that matter, if you are in China, how do you manage that time, the language issues, and so on and so forth? Very insightful, and I think that's its second very important factor. And so G has always been, on a global point of view, is a kind of an organization we always, the companies look forward to. And G is known to bring in the practices which everyone starts blindly following in years to come. And that's where understanding what this company does is so critical. And the point that was brought about, I think, is very critical. You see, from the multinational point of view, there is a tendency that parent company, the term you used, ethnocentric, especially these MNCs emerging from US and from Japan, they have a whole lot of ethnocentric orientation. And they believe that our practices are the best practices. And that's where they start duplicating what they were doing there in the other countries when they expand. And I think that's where the point you brought in is so critical. While through system you may like to control, you may like to unify, create that unifying culture and system, but don't forget that local differences. So what may work in US, given my ethnocentric orientation, or what works in Japan, given my ethnocentric orientation, one way is, this is how I appraise, this is my appraisal system. Let me duplicate it in India. But the moment you come to India, please look at how people respond to that appraisal system. Or bell curve may be wonderful in one context, but you come to India, whether this bell curve is going to work. Or for that matter, other HR practices. So I think the subsidiary and parent company relationship, how you transfer your systems, whether they are going to be accepted by the subsidiary, is a very, very critical issue. And I think these three are very critical and fundamental issues: the culture issue, the expat issues, and the HR system issues. If we can address these issues, the HR has done its justice in the management of global organization. We have some questions. Let me pick up those questions. Let me first take up this one. So this is for you. What do you think entry-level professionals like us need to do to build a career in the HR function?
It's a question after my own heart. I think whoever asked a very bright question. I would say when you look at entry-level career in HR, I would probably kind of transcend not just HR but any other function as well. Be open to whatever is coming your way. Don't set up conditions, don't set up any preconditions that I'll not do this and I'll not do that and I'm not going to be open to this, I'm not going to be open to that. The first 2-3 years of your career are like be a sponge. What you learn in a B school and what you learn outside, the practical implication of what you learn in a B school and the practical implication outside, you'll see a world of difference there. And it's very important to keep your mind totally open Never shy away from the hard job. Always take the hard job. Always, pick up some things which would be the toughest things to do. For everybody in the room who wants to do an HR career, given Modi's mantra of Make in India, seek out plant stints, seek out industrial relations stints. That's a skill which is kind of fading away, as you see. We spoke about that in the morning session also, that a lot of these roles are we're talking about people being on contractual roles, etc. But understand the nuances of what risks you bring to the company. So again, be open to whatever is coming your way. Don't say no to hard work. Pick up the toughest roles, and for careers in HR, first role, pick up your industrial relation role for sure. After that, try and do more of the specialist roles in staffing. Do comp and ben for sure. Make sure you cover those bases, and then start looking at generalist roles. Post that. That would be my advice.
Thank you. This is the question, Anmol, for you. What are the ways to consistently sustain the ethical culture in an organization?
Well, to be honest, this is actually a difficult question because, first let's start with who an HR professional is, and you have to get your own ethical frame of mind absolutely right. I've just 15 years of experience, but my learning, both good and bad, in the journey across 4 companies, is that essentially human resources is a journey of your own value system, and it gets tested day in and day out, right? So if you don't stand for something in life, you can fall for anything. I once saw this quotation somewhere. So first thing is, what is the culture itself HR is creating on an ongoing basis? What is the perception about HR? That is the first self-reflection question the department has to go through. That is one. Second is, are you ready to challenge the top management, right? Because tomorrow, when your values are getting tested in various moments of truth, in various decisions, etc., do you have the homework, the courage, and the conviction to persuade and perhaps convince your senior management that, sir, this is perhaps not the right thing to do in this circumstance? And this skill is developed through storytelling, through case studies. For example, everyone talks about case studies in business school, and that is where it ends. I think the more case studies you make within an organization, and success stories and failure stories, and which are disseminated in your system, the better cultural fabric you will have. I'm a great admirer of one organization called Mindtree. As a part of their induction, they share with all the employees that under what circumstances do people get sacked. Very few companies have that conviction that on the day one you come into a company and the first presentation is that what can get you sacked, right? But these are the things, how you create culture, and how you create an abiding culture.
Thank you. We have a very interesting question, little controversial, so restrain in your answer. All right. The question is sexual harassment of women at Workplace Act 2013 detrimental to service industry? My answer would be absolutely no, but I leave it to the panel members. How do they respond?
So just can we look at the question again, so that I know I want to be on the right. Okay. Sexual harassment of women at workplace is something which is an evil. It should be kind of sought, hunted, finished, killed at the first shot. This sort of a thing cannot be allowed to fester. These things should not be allowed to tolerate. And I'll also probably say kind of the values I think we have been brought up on. Even if to err on the side of caution, err on the side of caution. Create a culture, be transparent. I mean, don't let something go like a witch hunt sort of a scenario too. We have to kind of guard industries around that. But there are enough and more indicators to know if, where the trends are. I mean, there are a lot of past behaviors in a person which you can point, highlight, you can look at. But as a practice in India, where we're trying to get diverse workforce into work, And you need the diverse workforce into work because you're leaving out a huge bunch of, it's a huge talented lot of Indian, diverse talent out there. But any sort of any hint of harassment, etc., should not be tolerated, and it should be kind of driven down from the top itself. So it would be something which we feel very strongly about, and I know the industry feels very strongly about it as a practice can't be tolerated.
I think I totally agree with Mr. Sen on this, and in fact, I'll share some practical insights. In fact, we are in an industry that each year, yes, there are some instances, and the best, one of the good approaches in managing a committee and in managing this whole issue at the workplace is communication about it. Put posters, put flyers about your harassment policy, put names of the people who are heading that committee. And another learning has been very strong: never just have a committee which comprises of your internal people. I think some of the best people on this earth I've ever interacted with are school principals. If you can bring in a school principal on your harassment committee, and preferably a lady school principal, it will be an immense value addition in terms of the way an organization looks and looks at this issue. Yes, the ITC policy is that it has to be proven, and there's a committee and then there's an inquiry. So the benefit of what do we call a fair or benefit of justice given to both sides, right? And at a global level, I'm just sharing, this is another interesting insight I picked up. In the United States, some employers are, of course, US is a much advanced society, and someone was sharing with me that they are now creating love contracts, So in case there are two colleagues who are in the same organization and are in a dating relationship or in some sort of a relationship, so there's a disclosure policy to disclose to your employer, to HR, that we are having a relationship, right? And tomorrow if anything goes bad in this relationship, right, the employer is not responsible in any way. Now, in this, perhaps in an advanced society, this works well. And perhaps that's a society which has evolved. But America's obsession with de-risking is very high. So while they've de-risked themselves in this, but I don't know how much efficacious these sort of measures are. But please have a robust committee, and we are very sure on taking instant action. There's zero tolerance on this. See, that I feel is the capability of the committee or of the organization to find the truth. You have to provide the process and the mechanism, right, to let the truth come out. Yes, there could be some instances that that the one side is perhaps not that much of a victim or something. Those things would be there, but you have to give a very, very fair and an objective view. And one thing to be avoided is that the top management has a tendency, somehow, because it likes to manage across organizations, which I feel, in my personal view, and I also tell my senior people, that please let it take in very objective and a straightforward sort of a route and an approach, and let's not intervene in anything unless a final inquiry report arrives at. Yeah. No, firstly, it's not that we want it at the workplace, So no one wants this sort of a thing to happen. But over the, given the nature of our industry and all, as and when a case comes over, there's a turnaround time of at least 1.5 to 2 months, right, to get your facts right and to get a complete homework on it.
Look up the Posh committee. There's a Vishaka case judgment which kind of you have to have a committee which has a certain prescribed constitution, and it has a certain prescriptive timelines also on which how cases are decided. So, it's not just the beck and women fancy of any company.
Okay, one last question which is quite interesting, and maybe after that we'll stop. Again, this is Anmol, the audience is very fond of you. Another very interesting question to you. As you have said, controllable variable is employee, but he is not all that controllable, as we don't know when he will shift to the other company. So that's the question. You don't know when he's going to move the organization, and how do you control?
See, on this, I'll be inspired by the West on this. So as long as you are in a relationship with your employer, be the best, you know. So as long as you are there, give your best, and it's the employer's duty to get the best out of you. And I shared that there are 3 types of talent in my view. One is the sprinters, 2 to 3 years. So get the best out of them. Then there are the middle distance runners, 5 to 10 years. Make them work hard and let them see a cycle of change, build their resume. And the third are the marathon runners, you know, who keep on toiling and, you know, finally get where they want to.
Thank you very much. It was lovely, and I think very insightful views have been shared. And I'm sure everyone in the audience has benefited from these views. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you all the honorable guests for their insightful ideas. The session definitely offered a plethora of learning for each one of us. It was indeed a very enriching experience.
Now, I would like to call upon our respected Director General, Professor I.M. Pandey, on the stage to present mementos to our honored guest as a token of respect.
Now, I would request our honorable guest faculty members to proceed to the green room for a tea break. The students may leave for the cafeteria. In the next session, kindly assemble at 4:15. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.